Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me up here to tell something about the story from Aarhus, the transformation from a main library to Doc 1, and that is our new main library, as you see up here, that will open in June. I'll tell you a little bit about the background for this transformation. Then, of course, something about this new building, Doc 1. Then something about the process, what have we done to get to the opening. And then, in the end, something about another project that we have been doing with the Chicago Public Libraries and IDEO about how to accelerate change in libraries using design thinking. So it is a historical time in Aarhus. We have been working on this new library, Doc 1, for 10 years now, and we're going to open it now. And so we are pretty excited about that. The opening day is June 20, so it's pretty soon. This is a picture from the building from yesterday, so there's still stuff to do down there, but we will be ready. These days, they are doing some of the final installations of the big parts of the building. This is one of our art pieces, the gong, which is the world's biggest pipe bell, as you see over here, who was put into the building last week through the roof. So it's now installed in the building. It's a bell, and it has a connection to the hospital in Aarhus. So every time a child is born in Aarhus, out on the hospital they have this big button, so the parents can go and push the button when the child is born, and then the gong will say gong in the library. So it's in the middle of the library space. Pretty nice art piece, we think. And outside the building we have a very big playground with some very big animals. And they also, yesterday, they installed the bear and the monkey, so a lot of great new stuff for our users. A little bit about the background and why we are moving the main library. Aarhus is the second largest city in Denmark. There is 300,000 citizens. We have a main library and 18 branches. The branches are changing from libraries to being community centers. They have a lot of self-service so that you can check into the library even though it's closed and stuff like that. But the main library, right now we are living in this building, who just turned 85 years. So it's quite an old building, and it's not. We don't have space enough. It's not very well suited for the needs that the users have. Right now we have 8,500 square meters, and we are then moving into this thing that gives us a lot of more space. So there will be about 16,000 square meters for the library in this new building. But why are we doing that? Why build a big library like that in a time where everything is available online and where the library business is changing? Well, we think there are a lot of reasons for that, and you probably would agree with that. We think there are a lot of reasons to have a physical library. We use this table to tell us where we're going. We say that we are going from a space for media to a space as a media. We're going from meeting information at the library to meeting people, to experimenting, to from arranged events to things that happens. And all these things over here, we need a new library to make that happen. We also like to say that we are building this library for people and not for books. So all people have a need to innovate themselves and to be inspired, and the library is a great place to do that on your own, or maybe do it together with other people. We have some cooperation with the library in Birmingham. They just opened their great new library last year, and they told us some of the numbers they have experienced so far. First of all, they saw that the number of people going to the library was exploding, and then they also found out that actually only 15% of those people came for books or media. The rest of their visitors came for a lot of different purposes. So that tells us that there are needs for other things than books at the library. So the vision for Doc 1 is that it should be a space for cooperation, a place for dialogue, sharing, knowledge and inspiration, an open, informal learning space, and then it should also be a unique place for children and families. That has been a focus area from the beginning. So in the building there are lots of space for children and families. From the beginning of this project, it has been a strong decision that our users should be a part of it. If we want to build a library for people, of course, we should co-create this new building with the users in Aarhus, all our partners, and so on. So we have had a lot of citizen panels, workshops, focus groups, interviews, all that kind of stuff, both with our end users, but also a lot of strategic cooperation with partners and so on. So a lot of people in Aarhus have been involved in this new building, and it goes back to the beginning of the process where we had to form the vision for this new building, the values, programming the building, choosing the right building, to the interior design and the name of the building. We have also involved the users in that, and a lot of development projects to find out what kind of services should the library have in this new library. So a lot of that. And 10 years ago, where we started this process, we also cleared up the whole front area of the main library, so we have a big empty space that we call the Transformation Lab, and we decided that this space should be a place for prototyping and experimenting and testing out different things for the new library, also to show our users every time they come to the library that things are changing here and they could be a part of it. So they come to the main library and the first thing they see is this space. At this time we had a newsroom, so a project team was experimenting what kind of new ways could we think of when we want to expose news in the library. And 2 weeks after that, we were experimenting with a new thing. So all our users were exposed to this idea about this library is changing and you can be a part of it. And actually, we have decided that this space, we have been using it for testing and trying out things for the new library, but in Doc 1 there will also be a transformation lab. So we will keep that space to ensure that we keep on experimenting. It's not really over yet, it's actually just beginning now, and we need to constantly try to find out where are the library going and what kind of new services should we do. So, Doc 1, a little bit about that building and what's inside it. Doc 1, the building is part of a very big project. So it's actually about opening up the harbor side in Aarhus, which have been very closed until now. So apart from the building, there's also automatic parking space underneath the building, so you just drive in your car in an elevator and then it goes down underneath, and then when you need it again, you just put in your little ticket and then the car comes up to you again. So that's actually the biggest gadget in the library is that parking lot. All our users want to see it and try it out, and it's quite exciting. So maybe you should come and try it one day. And then there's also a new harbor space around the building. There's a arrival center for the light rail. There'll be a new light rail in Aarhus, and it will stop directly under the building. Then it's also uncovering the river and a lot of traffic regulation. So it's a very, very big project, and it's changing. It's actually a new city part of Aarhus. And the politicians chose the library to be a part of that to ensure that to create life and activities on the harbor, and also to use the library as sort of a driver for the city development in Aarhus. So this is a picture of some of the elements, the opening of the river, and then our building, and then all the harbor space around it. So it's pretty complicated and a big change for the city. The idea of the building is to have an open urban space. So the library is actually just an urban space with a roof upon it. So there's a big roof put down on this open space. And if we look through the building, it looks like this. We have the parking space underneath it, and then some very big open areas for the library. This is a plan of the level 1. Do we have like a red light that I can point with up here? No. I'll just explain it then. You come in with where the red arrow is, and then, as you can see, it's just an open space. There are, of course, a lot of meeting rooms and project labs, study cells, stuff like that. But apart from that, it's open space that where we have the library, but also a lot of other activities. Some of them are mentioned on this map. It's a little bit difficult to see, and we don't really have other pictures than this, so you have to bear with that. We have, for example, on the left side, the urban office. This is for entrepreneurs, upcoming innovators. We have gaming areas. We have the transformation lab up there. We have study cells, children's theaters, the living room. We have campaign shops, that's kind of pop-up shops. So we have a lot of places where our partners can come in and use the space. So they can, for example, come to Dock 1 and have a pop-up shop. We have some furniture for that, and then they can have a little shop inside the library space. And these are some of the early pictures from the architects. This is what it looks like when you come in. Just to give you an idea about, this is really just an urban square with some big elements on it. In the middle of the building, there's a big ramp that combines, so actually just a big staircase that combines level 1 and level 2. It looks like this today, or yesterday. So you're going from level 1 to level 2, and the marked area is the big area for children and families. So that is just to show you that they have quite a lot of space compared to what they have today. In the children and family area, there is, of course, what you need if you're a family, eating rooms, stuff like that. There is a play library, so a closed room where you can do all different kind of digital play and physical play. There's a gamer street and a lot of makerspace activities up there as well. We have some better pictures here where you can see the play library over here. It's a model of that. So the play library is equipped with all kinds of lights and projectors and stuff like that, so you can create different atmospheres. So if you're going to have a theme about the jungle, then you can create a jungle in there, or the Harry Potter scenario and stuff like that. And they also have a big staircase where you can have story time and stuff like that. So we got a lot of new space down there that we have to put a lot of activities into. Then something about the process and how we got here. As I said, it has been very important for us that the citizens are in control and that they get the ownership of the library. And We have been doing that by all these different kinds of workshops and happenings in the library where we invite the citizen to be a part of it. We have also had summer camps for children where they could come and participate for a week or two, and then at this summer camp, for example, they were building the new library. So this guy down here, he had it's about 7 years ago, so it was part of the planning process. So he actually built the new library in cardboard, and he found out that he thought that then the manager of the library should have his office on the rooftop, so he had a good view of the city. And they had a lot of crazy ideas. Some of the kids wanted to have a football field on the rooftop and all that kind of different things. And of course, we couldn't use their ideas directly, but it gave us a lot of insight in what are the children thinking about a library, and a good chance to get a dialogue with them. The guy lying over here is one of our staff members, so he got into this dialogue with this kid about what are you dreaming of and how would you use this new library that you have built here. So a lot of that kind of activities. In our transformation lab at the main entrance, we have had lots of testing of different things. Here we are testing out a new service point, so how should a reception or a service point in Dock 1 look like? Then we built it and tried it out for a couple of weeks to try to find out how's this working out. We have also involved the citizens in developing the name and the visual identity for Dock 1. So we asked them to come up with a name, and there was a lot of suggestions for that. And then we chose a name, and then we had this pop-up shop in the city center where the design company were developing the visual identity, and then people stopped by and gave their input. We like that color, we don't like that. And he used some of it in the final visual identity for Dock 1. Then we also, for example, tested out all the furniture with our users. So we brought in some of the furniture that we thought should be a part of the building, and then tested it out with our users, and they gave us all their input about. It was everything from, is it a good chair to sit in, or what could I use this kind of furniture for? So a lot of that kind of activities. Also it was also a way to tell them that this is actually happening, and we are soon going to open this new space for you. We have also been doing a lot of things about partnerships, because we know that this new building is huge compared to what we have today, and we can't possibly fill it out with the activities ourselves. So for quite a few years, we have been building up partnerships with other organizations in the city. We have had a lot of interviews and meetings with them. So right now we have, I think it's 80 partnerships confirmed that they would do activities in the new building. So it's quite a lot, but we also need it to have activities for the users. Then about the programming of the space. It was very important for us to leave the media as a focus point, so don't think too much about the books and all the other media when we plan this space. Of course, they're going to be there, but the other activities are more important. So we tried to focus on the human needs, and also to make sure that there was room for a lot of unprogrammed space, so that the users can make it their library. It shouldn't be the librarian's library, it's the user's library. So they should have the possibility to program the space for themselves. And we used what we in Denmark call the 4-room model. Some of you might have seen it. It's made by some researchers at the Copenhagen University, the former Royal School of Library. Oh, thank you. Now we have the red light. This is the 4-room model, and we have used it as sort of a compass to show us what kind of things should we think about when we plan the library space. There should be yes, the green dot, yes. A space for inspiration, a space for learning, a space for meeting, and a space for performance. I think the libraries are very good at inspiration spaces and learning spaces, meeting spaces also, but one of the new things is the space for performance. So we have also been doing a lot of projects to find out how do you make that kind of space in a library. So a lot of testing out of new formats for example, a meeting space. The performative space, we have been doing a lot of maker spaces, hacker spaces and stuff like that. This is a tech lab that we made at the library last year in cooperation with the local hacker space. So for a month or two, we had this space filled with old technology that people could put together in new ways. A lot of activities for children and families to do this kind of hacking of old technology together. So that is one idea for how to make a performative space at the library. Inspiration space, we do a lot of digital installations in the physical library. This is actually a quite old project called the Story Surfer. So that is a search engine for kids, so they can push buttons around here for subjects, and then they can find books when they go around on the floor. We have had a lot of these installations also to bring some of the digital stuff into the physical library to create a new learning and inspiration space. So this is a digital table with local history, and people can, primarily kids, can interact with it using these small dolls and move them around on the table. So in planning the space, some of the ideas for what a library in Doc 1 could look like could be, for example, it could be this maker library. We don't think that we can't really have a real maker space, but we can do a lot of maker activities without having a full maker space. So we like to think of the library as the local community's innovation space. So this is where the local community can innovate together. So that is one idea for how the space could work in Doc 1. It could also be this low-intensive meeting space, so a space where you meet and are exposed to new values and ideas from other users, things that you don't meet at work or in school and so on. We also think that it's important to think of the library as a relational library. So you note where he has his hand, this guy. So we help build these relations. And then we also think that even though we have been planning the space and doing a lot of different things to try to figure out how should this new library in Doc 1 look like, then it's also very important to think of it as a space that is an ongoing prototype. So yes, we're going to open in June, but we know that things will change very fast after that. So even though it's difficult to make these flexible spaces, we like to think of the space as a thing that should change, so it constantly meet the needs that you find in your local community, that we find in Aarhus. Yes, that was something about Doc 1 and the process that we have been through to get there. And as I said, I think it's important for us to think that the development of the library never stops. So we're going to open, yes, but it's actually just now that it really begins. So it's important for libraries to have tools to find out how do we meet the needs of the users and how can we accelerate innovation and change in our libraries. And 2 years ago, we were very lucky to get a grant from the Gates Foundation to actually do that, to actually find out what kind of tools do a library need to be better at meeting the needs of the users. So this is from the announcement in Chicago. We got this grant together with the Chicago Public Libraries, and the Gates Foundation wanted us to find out how can we have a new global innovation model for libraries. And of course, the Gates Foundation, one of their focus areas is to help libraries in areas that don't have so many resources. So they wanted to be a toolkit or an innovation model that could also be used in Uganda, in Asia, and everywhere all over the world. And they wanted us, Chicago and Aarhus, to start that work. And from the beginning, we knew that if we were going to do that, we needed someone to help us, and we asked IDEO, who are a very well-known design company, who are very good at doing these kind of human-centered design and design thinking kind of activities. So we asked them to be our consultants in this project. IDEO is very well known for doing, for example, the first Apple mouse. They also questioned or helped the toothbrush market developing toothbrush for kids. So for a lot of years, toothbrush companies thought that toothbrushes for kids should be smaller because they have a smaller hand. But IDEO use field activities, so they went out in the field and watched a lot of kids brush their teeth, and they found out that toothbrushes for kids should actually be bigger. So they made this bigger handle. So that's why you often see toothbrushes for kids with a very big handle now. So design thinking, as they use it, is about accelerating innovation and about being better to meet the user's needs. And it's actually quite simple. IDEO have this very simple model. They go out and learn about the world. For example, the kids brushing their teeth. Then they go back and have some ideas. And then they do some prototypes, make the ideas real to test out, is this the right way to solve the problem? And then they take these prototypes out in the real world again and see how do the users use this prototype that we have made, and then again have some ideas, and then again and again, and go around in this circle for a lot of times, and then in the end you get out and have a final product. So it looks quite simple, but it's not, and it takes a lot of time to go through this circle. But that was what we wanted to use in this global innovation model. So we brought IDEO in, and the idea was that they came to Aarhus and stayed with us for a couple of months, and then their designers learned our staff members to work as a designer, and also to find out how are these kind of methods, how do they work in a library setting. So working the IDEO way, of course, we had to go out and learn about the world, and one of the ways we did it was to go out and do a lot of interviews in people's home. So that was quite a new thing for us. We have been doing user-centered design and user involvement for a lot of years, as I just told you, but often we have done it by inviting our users to come to the library to participate in a workshop or being part of some kind of focus group or stuff like that. But in this project, we went home to people. Here we visited an Indian family who was working in Aarhus, so a newcomer family, and we went to them to talk about what kind of activities do they do together as a family. And by visiting them in their home, we got a lot of extra information about them. We could see what kind of media did they use, and what kind of pictures did they have on their wall and stuff like that. And we actually found out that this family found it quite hard to become a part of the Danish society. So the only way they could become a part of a social community was through their children and the children friends, the friends they had in school, for example, and the other parents. And they actually had a need for some activities where they could meet other citizens in Aarhus. And that was one of the things that we would never have found out was if we had just invited them into and giving them some questions at the library. So we got a lot of new knowledge about their needs and ideas for how could a library support that. And we went home to a lot of different kind of users. This is actually a non-user, so a guy, he don't use the library at all. He can't think of anything he could use it for. He has his own library at home. He has Netflix and all that kind of stuff, so he don't need the library. But we interviewed him to find out how is he using these new kinds of media to inspire us to maybe come up with a service for our users. And this is another user that we visited. And these interviews were lasting for about 2 hours or so. So starting out with talking to them about how do you use the library and what else do you do in your spare time and what kind of interest do you have, and then in that way got into a longer conversation with them and gaining a lot of knowledge about their life. So it was very important for us to do this, to make sure that we don't just find out what people say, but also what they do and what they feel and what they think. So we should think of all these things when we try to find out what kind of services could we have at the library for our users. And then after doing that kind of activity, after going out and interviewing our users, then we went back and evaluated on that and did a lot of ideation activities, just a lot of brainstorms and stuff like that, a lot of analyzing. They said that, and why is that, and asking a lot of whys is what you do. And then we built prototypes. So after interviewing and having the first idea for maybe a new service at the library, then we built a prototype of it and tested it out with our users. So, for example, this is just a prototype of a new digital service. So we made this very simple paper prototype and went up in the library and tested it out. This is a service for daycare centers. So a kind of book box with the new books from the library and suggestions from this is our staff members, suggestions from the library to the daycare center, accompanied by a newsletter. So they had this idea for this box. So they quickly made it and made an appointment with the daycare center, went out and showed it, and then asked the daycare center, what do you think of it? What do you like about it? What do you don't like about it? If you should change something about this book box, what should it be? So early prototypes, and the prototypes are not necessarily suggestions for how the services should end up looking like. It's also a tool to gain more knowledge about your users. So also a tool to just get into a new conversation with your users. We also did some testing at our support area. So this is the area where the librarian are sitting at the main library right now, and we wanted to find out how do we make the librarians more visible in the library, and how do we tell our users what they can actually use them for. So we did a project where we used these IDEO methods to observe and interview the users in the main library and made some prototypes of new ways of making the librarians visible. They have this yellow key hanger, so we tried in different ways to highlight the fact that if you need anything, ask the ones with the yellow hanger. And we did a lot of promotion on all our digital displays around the library. We have pictures like this, pictures of our staff members telling what could you use them for. For example, if you are doing an assignment, you can book a librarian. If you need help with this service or that service, just ask us. So actually very simple ideas, but this is also just a very early prototype of how to make the librarians more visible. We put it out and got some reaction from the users, and now we're changing it a little bit, so it will probably be different from this. But again, one of the things that I think IDEO taught us was the fact that you should just do it. Just go out and do it. You should talk less at the library and do more. So get it out there, and if you have an idea, get it out of your head and test it out with the users, because it is the quickest way to find out is this a good idea, and it is also a very good way to get some new insights in from your users. So we went through that process with IDEO on our side. On the first 5 interviews we did in our users' home, IDEO went with us and showed us how to do it. And they also observed how are we using these methods in libraries, and they did the same at the Chicago Public Libraries. So when they went through a similar process with the IDEO as guides, and then the final result from the project was this toolkit that was published in January. So it's out there now, free for download at designthinkingforlibraries.com. And in this toolkit, it actually contains a toolkit with a lot of explanation about what is design thinking, why is it interesting for libraries. Then there is also a quick guide, so a design thinking in a day guide. So if you have just one day to learn these kind of methods, you could take this guide, download it, and then just start page 1, and it will explain you what to do. You could also use this quick guide if you, for example, think that I want to use these kind of methods, but maybe just for an hour or 2. Then there's also some suggestions for some small things you can do. And it is really small things. It's like go up for an hour, put on a coat so no one can see that you are a librarian, and then go up in the library space and observe what's going on for this hour. And it seems very simple and very basic, and can we really learn something from that? But our experience is, yes, we can learn a lot from that, especially if you share what you have seen on that observation with your colleagues and try to find out what does that mean and stuff like that. But that's all explained in this quick guide. Then there's also an activities workbook. So also a help if you want to do this kind of work. You can tear out these pages, and there is explanation of all kinds of different methods. So we have tried to make it very easy to use, and there's also there will be some more information on the website. It's still brand new, but we want to find out if there should be, for example, a community and stuff like that where libraries can learn from each other, because the idea now is that it's out and it should be used by any library who wants to be better at changing the library fast and changing the library so that it fits what the users needs. And then I think we're talking a little bit to the Gates Foundation about what they want to be the next phase of this project. But it's out there and free to use for everyone. So I think I'm on time and everything. Oh yes, yes. So just to sum up what I've been telling you about, we think it's important to make a library for people, so that's what we have been focusing on in Aarhus. We think the library should be an urban space with plenty of unprogrammed space for our users, and that the library should, both in your planning of new libraries, should be co-created with your users, but of course also when we open Doc One from day one, it should be a co-created space with our users from now on and until it's not there anymore. So the prototyping and development process won't stop. And we think that this design thinking is a great tool for libraries. It's something that you have to learn, but there is now some tools that will help you along the way. There will also actually be a Danish project about this design thinking stuff. So the big project with Gates and Chicago, and it's a global project, and everything is in English so far. But the cultural ministry has given us some money to do a Danish project about it, and we're actually also thinking a little bit about a Nordic project, so that these tools, some of them can be translated, and there could be some Nordic activities about how can a library use this as a tool. So hopefully there will be more about that in the coming years. And then, of course, we hope to see you in Aarhus. If you ever come by, please let us know so that we can show our new library. We are opening for the public June 20, but the international opening for the library world is in September at our next library festival. So that would be this festival for a couple of days with a lot of keynotes and sessions from people all over the world. So this is definitely a place to go if you want to see what this new library is about. Yes, thank you.